how dare you speak about one of your partners who would lay their lives down for you in anything other than excitement and joy? Like, no one tells your wives what to do with their uteruses or when you guys can consummate or not. How dare you try and steal that or use what you knew what you were doing? I can still be a mother. I can still be a wife. I can be a woman and do my job as effectively or better.
Brothers and sisters, brothers and sisters, I don't know what this world is coming to.
You're listening to the Black and Blue Podcast, a discussion and celebration of the roles of African Americans and other minorities in U.S. law enforcement. Your host on the Black and Blue Podcast is Dale Peters, a law enforcement professional with over 20 years experience in the business. Hop on board this Black and Blue train of interviews, current events, and pop culture conversations. So get ready. The Black and Blue Podcast is coming at you right now. Everybody, welcome to the first episode of the Black and Blue Podcast. I appreciate you being here with me today for the very first episode of the Black and Blue Podcast. What we're trying to do here is shine lights and humanize the brothers in blue, the sisters in blue, and that comes in all shapes, forms, colors, and all that. So my first guest here today on the Black and Blue Podcast works as a detective for the Redlands Police Department in Redlands, California. Please help me welcome in Detective Liz Green. All right, here she is.
Hello.
How you doing?
Good.
How's it going?
Here, I'm glad to be here.
All right, thank you for joining me on this first episode. You're the very first guest on this podcast. Yeah, you're the first one.
Get it.
So what's good with you? How's things going with you?
Things are good. It's 2020. I'm excited. It's a new year. Kind of have some new goals and new perspectives. Working on my vision board and stuff.
Okay.
So,
all right. Well, what's on your vision board?
So I want to get back into reading more books. So I have some books that I am working on reading. Less time on TV and social media. And more in reading.
Except for the Black and Blue podcast. And
now, I don't have anything
right?
wrong with social media. I just want to balance that a little bit more.
Right.
So that I have some valuable content to share when I am on social media.
Absolutely.
You know?
Okay.
I like the shows, but you can only love and hip hop so much. You know?
Ain't that the truth, for real?
Yeah,
so you work for the Redlands Police Department in Redlands, and what do you currently do there?
So currently I am assigned to investigations as a detective. Under that, I am currently working with the San Bernardino County Human Trafficking Task Force in partnership with several other agencies. And so we are bringing awareness to human trafficking, holding traffickers and sex buyers accountable, as well as our primary focus, rescuing victims out of sex trafficking and labor trafficking.
Nice. And how long you been doing that?
So I will almost be coming up on a year for this particular assignment, and I was in investigations a year prior to.
Okay. How long you been with Redlands?
This is my 15th year.
Oh wow, 15.
Yeah.
So you an OG over there now, huh?
I kind of can almost be a senior officer. I got to change my mindset because I feel like I'll do it. I'm like, wait a minute, I am a salty dog.
Okay. All right. And what made you want to get into law enforcement in the first place?
So I hated cops, but I always loved justice. And because of my love for justice, I was afforded an opportunity. My mentor, he used to babysit us when we were younger because we all grew up in church together. And then he went into the military, and then he became a police officer. And so as a teenager, my era, circa Rodney King, circa the riots, so that time. And so that the emotions, the passions, the injustices, my contacts with law enforcement were not positive. So that was really the only view I had of law enforcement. So when he did that, I was like, he's gonna change. He's not gonna be cool anymore.
Right.
Lo and behold, he remained the same. in terms of like his interactions, who he was. He didn't mistreat people. Everyone was treated fairly. He still spent time with us. A lot of the youth, he would come by when I was on my way to school, and he'd give us rides to school. And that led to me then doing ride-alongs with his department. And through him, I met a lot of other amazing officers that weren't just Black, that were white, that were Hispanic, that were doing good things. And then I started to be able to see myself in that position. And it began to challenge my preconceived mindsets, and some of them based on experience too. But it began to challenge those. And then I had to redefine the boxes I tended to put people in. And that sparked a love for that. And so fast forward to as an adult, I finished college, and I'm like, I'll do forensics because I love science. So I was doing forensics. And then the opportunity opened up for me to go to the academy, and I jumped on it, and I've been here ever since.
All right. Go girl. So right now you are a detective. I assume you've worked patrol because that's where everyone starts out. What else have you done over there?
So I've done community policing. I've done SRO. So SRO
is what? School
resource officer. Okay. And it was a very unique experience because I had to balance that with some of the community policing things. But I have to say there was such a love for that, and working with the community and the importance of that in this era of law enforcement. I can't express the importance of a balanced policing approach, which our agency is an amazing agency that we really do focus on bringing the community in to help balance protecting and serving our community.
Yes.
And being public servants. And we can't do that alone. We need the other entities to, work with us. And so using the resources, the pastors, the teachers, the other allied agencies, the nonprofits, the for-profits, to help build our community protected and address concerns, as well as come up with innovative ideas on how to continue to build and go forward. That's been instrumental.
All right. That's what's up. So which assignment, it sounds like you really enjoyed community policing, SRO, and now you're in human trafficking. Which of those assignments really got you going the most? It sounds like all of them are kind of intertwined, kind of doing the same thing.
So on patrol, I tended to be the one that would pony up for sex crimes cases. And out of that, so I did the sex crime cases as a detective in the bureau. But I also did a lot of them on patrol. And when I say that, there's a lot of times our kids don't have advocates. Many of our victims, boys, girls, women, men, they don't have advocates. And it's such an uncomfortable and traumatic experience that a lot of people are uncomfortable investigating it, and they're uncomfortable talking about it. But I found the biggest reward in that because someone was a voice, someone advocated for justice, and someone advocated for accountability. So for me, that was probably the most rewarding, but I couldn't have been as successful without community policing, because a lot of my victims that later disclosed were kids I was helping with homework. I would sometimes put my crock pot in my office, and I would have food, and I had an extra computer put in there so the kids that didn't have computers could come in and do their homework. And I would sit there with them. So building that rapport, and then, participating in our programs like Midnight Hoops and stuff, where they could trust me that if they came and told me something, that they could trust that I was going to take action. So I don't think I could have been successful in one area without the other arms of the other areas.
Wow. Okay. Yeah, I like that. I like that a lot. So, you're really involved in your police work, what you do as a detective and all that. But, there's obviously another side to you.
Yes.
What do you do when you're off the job? What sort of things do you get into? Well, first of all, are you single? You married? You got kids?
I am now married. I'm excited. So for the majority of my career, I was a single mommy. And I have a wonderful son. And now I'm married, so I have a wonderful hubby.
All right.
And I have a bonus baby. I don't say stepkids. I like to say bonus. So God has blessed me with a bonus son.
Yes.
He's amazing and I love him to life. So I am enjoying being a wife and a mommy. I have one going to college and one in elementary. So it's pretty awesome.
That's a big difference there. That's a big difference, yes.
It's a huge difference. So I'm a kind of an empty nester, kind of not. So that's
one more to go
on my vision board. What do I do now? Because everything has, as a single mom, everything was geared towards my son not being a statistic, not being on the board. So now that we've reached there and God's been amazing and he's getting into colleges and stuff, now I'm like, now what do I do? So that being said, I am very active in my church, on the worship team. I'm the children's pastor, on the dance team, and then also as a trustee, and then helping out throughout other ministries. I also love with a capital L to travel. Like my goal is to travel and see the world. And I also have a heart for missions. So when I so that's also on my vision board. My in 5 years I can retire. So just planning financially where I want to go from there. But a huge part of it is going into missions. I have what's called Liz Foundation, and I'm working on forming that. But domestically creating after school programs for kids, and then internationally building schools in high poverty areas like Malawi, Haiti, Cambodia, and working to build secondary schools for a lot of the kids because it's not an option because of cost and things like that. And many of them have to work. So finding ways to give them more opportunities for jobs within their area by giving them the education so they can work at the hotels, they can build their own businesses or things like that. That's a desire of mine.
Right. Nice. And so you said you love to travel. What are some of the spots you've been to? Some of the places you've been to?
So, ironically, it's cheaper to leave the country than to stay in the United States. So,
really?
I'm always going abroad.
Okay.
So, Costa Rica, Cambodia.
Costa Rica is dear to my heart. That's where the wife's from.
Yes.
So, and I love Costa Rica. I love it.
Cambodia was amazing. Some of the most humble, kindest people I have ever met. And we spent a lot of time with orphans there and they were just amazing. Japan, Tokyo. Tokyo was super dope. Tokyo Disney is gorgeous. Wow. And if you ever get to go to the Toyota super, I want to say web store. So it's the Toyota store in Tokyo. It was crazy. They have smart houses. They're working on like flying cars and stuff that grow with you. It was super cool. We also learned there my son did not know how to drive. So that was a fun trip. People there are very kind, lots of honor. In the people group. Been to Malawi, Africa. Again, another humbling experience, but some of the most amazing people. And our homeless people are rich in comparison to the poverty there.
Right.
And yet in all of that, they still will give you literally the clothes off their back to show you how much they appreciate you. So, and then the continent of Africa is just in itself gorgeous. If you ever get a chance to visit, it's definitely not what they put in the history books. It is beautiful.
Yes, that's on my bucket list. One of the places I definitely want to go to is Africa. Where in Africa did you go?
So we went to Malawi.
Okay.
Which is in between Tanzania and Mozambique. It's a sliver. And for a long time, history in the maps, they won't even put it on the continent. They won't put the country. So identity is a big area for them. But yes, it was absolutely beautiful. Definitely want to go.
I can imagine. I can imagine.
Cape Town in December. So I'm super excited about that.
Jet setting across the world.
I
want to be like you when I grow up. Be like you when I grow up. All right.
And then if you ever get a chance, go to Havana, Cuba. It's dope. It's
Havana, Cuba, huh?
Yes. It's the food is different, but the people is amazing. The culture is everything. It's one of the safest places I visited and I enjoyed.
Really?
Yes.
Okay.
Absolutely. I actually went there a day by myself, and I wandered around everywhere by myself with my limited Spanish and taxis and everything. But it was awesome. I enjoyed myself. I would definitely.
All right.
Beautiful.
All right. Did you bring back any cigars?
I did. You legally can bring back cigars, and
okay.
So.
All right. I'm gonna have to hit you up for a couple of those.
Yeah.
So, earlier you mentioned that there was a mentor that was big on your decision to want to pursue law enforcement. And can you talk about him or her or some other mentors that really guided you in your upbringing of want to, do well, go to college, go to school? I'm sure your parents have a lot to do with that.
So for college, I guess I was probably super blessed at the time growing up. My church was full of people in the Air Force, college grads. So it was just what you did. It wasn't a second thought or anything like that. I was blessed. Right. That was kind of just what we did. In my family, both of my parents are college grads. My uncle is military, but he's a successful banker. My aunt was very educated. Like, she goes to college for fun, if that'll give you some understanding of that. Uh-huh. And then I also had family members who didn't do formal college, but they did a lot of education and training and things like that. So it wasn't it was when. So for me, it's second nature to go, because my village, being complacent wasn't an option. Now, you could go into the military, you could get a trade or whatever else, but it wasn't an option to not do anything.
You couldn't be sitting around the house doing nothing. Could not be sitting around the house doing nothing.
Not at all.
All right.
Even if we called off sick at school, we had to clean the house.
Okay.
Somebody had to go to work. You're going to go to work too.
Ain't that right? Ain't that right? All right. So you went to college, you got a bachelor's, you got a master's too, right?
Yes, I did get a master's. What was that? In 2014.
All right. Good for you.
MBA, my MBA in business with a global influence. So.
Yes, how you like to travel. So I see how those two, align. How those two align. I'm gonna be like you when I grow up. I'm actually pursuing my master's right now. So yes, so hopefully sometime next year I'll get my master's. So we're doing things, try to show our community that we need to grow. We can't stay in the same place. We need to grow.
So proud of you. Yeah, so I'm gonna be doing your interview, right?
Hey. Come take over when I'm doing things like this. You could be the co-host. I appreciate that.
I love it.
For real. So, law enforcement nowadays is pretty volatile, from the news and social media and what's going on in the world. What do you see? Some of the challenges going on with law enforcement right now. I know we've got all the hands up, don't shoot. A lot of it justified, a lot of it not. But can you talk about what some of the challenges we've got going on right now?
So when you say challenges from the officer perspective, the community, or both?
Well, from the community, first of all, how they see us, which is one of the reasons why I wanted to do this podcast, to show them that, we're human too. We make mistakes. And if we do make mistakes, we need to be held accountable. But it's not all like everything that's shown on the media and all that, So some of those challenges, and then also, from an officer standpoint.
Okay. So from the community standpoint, I think that there is a major fear, a major concern with the conduct of policing and the double standard in policing. There is also a rage and an anger, but I don't think the rage or the anger is new. Mm-hmm. I don't think any of the emotions that we are seeing now are new. I think they're just televised.
Right.
And I think that they are much more easily accessed and broadcast because the exposure is much greater with the internet, with everybody having the ability to record, with the new apps and stuff. So I don't think that this feeling towards law enforcement is new. I think the behavior is much more widespread in that people are more apt to challenge law enforcement, to fight back, and they become much more violent openly. towards law enforcement. But there's always been attacks on law enforcement because we've had partners who have been injured and killed in the line of duty. But it wasn't as widespread, I think. And I think that people have become emboldened. I might get myself in trouble, but from a spiritual standpoint, I think because as a nation, we've been disrespectful from the top, it's rolling down. And so where we're seeing children being disrespectful to their to their parents, right? That disrespect of authority and leadership starts in the house because they hear you talking about leaders, they hear you talking negatively about government. Those seeds get planted and they manifest themselves.
Right.
So even in Congress, the disrespect of former presidents and things like that, these seeds plant, and you embolden, in fact, those under your covering, under your authority. And so your influence now has created a garden of disrespect and leadership. And it's watered by poor practices, poor behaviors, and unethical decisions and immoral behaviors. Yes. So we water the seeds by our poor actions.
Yes, absolutely. So you are obviously a female, Black female. So, when you put on the badge, you've got that to deal with. But then when you take it off, you've also got that to deal with. What are some of the things you've seen, challenges in law enforcement for, being a female, being a Black female, that you've experienced, if any?
So definitely having to justify my experience and my right or my qualifications as an officer. I've been in situations where me as an officer was diminished because, oh, you're Black, that's why they hired you. Like blatantly to my face.
Really?
Wow. Or, they hired you because of this, but had you have been white, they wouldn't have hired you. In other words, the lie of affirmative action that we are where we are because of affirmative action, not because we were qualified, not because we completed the same academy, not because some of my education I'm more educated than some of my partners on a academic level. But for whatever reason, those things still didn't qualify me to wear my badge. So having to deal with that has been a journey. And I say that that's not all of our partners. Like that is not everyone. I have amazing coworkers. I have amazing people who work with us and take people to task when they are operating unjustly or unethically. So I want to put that message out there, which I know is part of Black and Blue, is that we work with amazing officers.
Yeah, we do.
The culture. And I think our department is one of the better ones out there in terms of how we treat our community, how we treat others, and our interactions with our community, and how much our officers are in fact invested in our youth, are in fact invested in the importance of sowing into that, whether we give through donations, we show up, there's enough life experience that they understand life happens and everybody isn't in the same shoes as us.
Absolutely.
So I'm excited because we're a part of a department that understands that. And there are a lot of other departments that do that also. So that I think that's one of the areas. As a female, I think the double standard of how women are treated in law enforcement. I was in a briefing once, and so what a lot of people don't understand is when we get pregnant, we have to disclose. We're expected to disclose, right?
Okay.
There are certain intimate things that everyday people get to keep. Usually when people are pregnant, they try to keep that pregnancy quiet because there's that first trimester and there's so much that happens and loss. But we don't get that privilege because, in fact, there's a high probability you're going to fight. There's this, there's that. Right. And so in the conversation, a female officer had gotten pregnant for, I think, the second time. And because of that, she wasn't able to work patrol. She gets assigned to something where there's a less risk for injury to her and her child.
Okay.
And so the conversation was how stupid of that. And, that's a good job. Now we're down. And then I was told, don't you go do something stupid like that.
Wow.
And I remember thinking, how dare you talk to me about my body? How dare you speak about one of your partners who would lay their lives down for you in anything other than excitement and joy? Like, no one tells your wives what to do with their uteruses or when you guys can consummate or not. How dare you try and steal that or use what you knew what you were doing? I can still be a mother. I can still be a wife. I can be a woman and do my job as effectively or better.
Yes.
And you don't have that right. So that is something a lot of women in law enforcement deal with. Also, mothers tend to carry more things. So where my partner's wives will make their lunches or, take care of the things, I had to do that. I had to make my lunch, my kids' lunch, make sure I found someone to show up for his stuff, or can I finagle this? Can I take this day off and do that? And do it in a way where it didn't cause scrutiny or juggle that for the backlash. I even had, when I was trying to try for an assignment, they brought up the fact like, well, how is that going to affect your ability? You're a mom. How can you do that as a mom? So, and I was so taken aback, like,
and they don't do that for fathers.
They don't do that at all. When a dad, we were in a briefing once and the dad called off sick to take care of his son. And it was, he's such a good dad. And I had taken my son to the ER because he's an asthmatic, and I was scrutinized in the next briefing indirectly about commitment. There was a speech about commitment and, you need to be dependable and have your stuff in order. So there's a lot of double standards that women deal with in law enforcement and things like that. As African Americans, I think we tread a thin line, knowing when to have conversations and when not to. Because at the end of the day, when I take my badge off, very few people assume I'm a cop, much less a contributing citizen. And a lot of our culture is intertwined in many, like hip hop and a lot of other things that in themselves are branded as negative, and they're not. Our conversations are not. It's just what we do. And a lot of our partners don't have experience with our culture outside of work. And when I'm at work, you're not really getting everything of me unless you come home and meet with my family and have dinner. You really don't know who I am. And many of them their friendships are really limited to the workplace. Very few of them of our coworkers, and really in any work setting, have friends outside of their race.
Sure. I understand that.
So their culture is their experience is limited. So I'm very aware of the fact that when I take my uniform off, I'm just Joe Blow.
Yep, absolutely. And on that note, how do you feel, you being a Black female, you're looked at in the community when your community contacts? How does that, any of those interactions worked out over the years for you?
It's mixed. So I have those, there are some from our community, the Black and brown community, who are excited to see African Americans in law enforcement. They're like, good, we're glad we have good people there. We're glad that you're representing us, that there's someone here that can be a voice for us where we can't. There are those where I've been called Uncle Toms and all kinds of things that are not on my birth certificate by name. And it's hard because I'm like, you don't know me. You don't know what it is. And because I have to hold you accountable, it doesn't mean I'm selling out. It means you broke the rules. You have to be held accountable, period. But it doesn't feel good. That being said, and then those from not our community, more, it's a mix too, where they're very kind, they're very supportive of law enforcement in general. And then I had one time I showed up for a call for service, and this older Caucasian lady refused to open the door because she said there was a Black person pretending to be a cop, because there's no way I could have been a real police officer in uniform and everything. So there are those. There are those moments too. So I would say it's a mix. I don't have one that outweighs the other. It's just my desire that, like my mentor had for me, that when people see me, they begin to see themselves making a difference in the uniform, that they can relate to that, whether it's a little girl or a child of color. They can say, hey, there is a place for me there. You know, I didn't grow up seeing, outside of my mentor, I really didn't grow up seeing African Americans in law enforcement. So it never even fathomed that that could be me, you know. So to be able to see that for me is more important than the negative contacts, because I know that I carry myself ethically and morally, so I'm not tripping. Whatever label you give me, that's not me. I ain't tripping.
Exactly. That's what's up. All right. So, you know, we've been talking a lot about, you know, how law enforcement affects you, how you've affected law enforcement. Is there any sort of call, investigation, anything like that you can think off the top of your head that's been particularly gratifying, that you can talk about, you know, without naming names, or just a certain situation where you helped out something and it worked out really well for you?
Yeah, so there was a little girl that in community policing, I would often just talk to. She would come around to the community center and play and things like that. And I built a rapport with her and just would talk with her and things like that. And first she was kind of guarded, and then gradually she would come in, and then it went to giving me hugs and things like that. And I remained consistent in how I treated her and approached her. I began to notice she became very sexualized in her clothing and her dress. Mind you, she's still not over 10 years old.
Wow.
So I'm gradually noticing this over a year's time, still reaching out, still making sure, hey, come in my office, come eat, come do your homework, still being consistent. I stopped seeing her. Kind of would check on her, but I stopped seeing her. One day I get a call from her school and says she wants to talk to you. She's requesting to only talk to you. So I go to the school. During that time, she discloses physical and sexual abuse. Says, hey, my mom is getting ready to make me do some things I'm not comfortable with. In the backdrop, there was another family member that we had been getting a lot of referrals for, but I didn't even connect the two. We go, and through the investigation, we end up rescuing her and getting her out of there. All of these allegations were substantiated, and then some.
Wow.
And there were other children. We walked in, there was a baby eating dog food with rat feces. I mean, the house was bad. It was a heartbreaking situation.
I can imagine.
But we ended up getting the right people in custody and things like that. We got her put in a placement with her siblings, which was a huge blessing. About 6 months later, I get a card from her. And she says, thank you. I want you to know I'm okay. And so I think that's when it becomes worth it. That's when the
yes, that's amazing. That's amazing. How about on the flip side, something that you could talk about, you know, just a funny, hilarious, dumb call, you know, dumb criminal, something that, you know, comes to the top of your head that you can think of?
So we go out on a call to complain of a man down, and that typically means somebody's passed out or sleeping, or they could be drunk, or it could be a medical issue.
Right.
So we go there, and it ends up being this homeless gentleman, and he's very intoxicated. So I'm still young in this, and my supervisor shows up. So I'm like, I better do this by the book.
Right.
And so I'm like, hey, sir, can you talk to me, sir? And I'm like going through what we call field sobriety tests. In my mind, I'm like, I really don't need to do this. It is clear this man is drunk, but we have to write a report. We have to document it. So I go through, he can't really stand up or anything. So I'm going through, and I didn't even realize my supervisor was kind of getting irritated, but like, why don't you just arrest him? After the fact, he told me these things. But so I asked him, I go, sir, do you know your ABCs? He goes, yeah. And I said, well, can you sing them for me? You know, and that's typically something, or can you say them? And he goes, A, B, C, it's easy, 1, 2, 3.
Yes.
And so my supervisor's like, that's it, that's what you get. Put him in the car, let's go. So we ended up arresting him, but it was the funniest. I absolutely did not expect this gentleman to even know that song, much less have enough wherewithal to say it.
Oh, but that's Michael. Come on now.
About that today. Yeah.
All right.
He was on pitch and everything.
On pitch too, huh?
Yeah, he was in there.
So I guess he wasn't
a golden ticket for Hollywood.
He was a functioning singing alcoholic.
He was a singing alcoholic. He asked me for a date. He told me on the way as I was transporting, he said if I put some money on the books, he'd take me for coffee later.
Wow.
So yeah. Okay.
All right. What are some of your pet peeves at work? Things that just irk you when you see it or you got to deal with it?
I don't like disrespectful kids or disrespecting parents and things. Oh Lord.
Yeah.
Or parents that don't know how to set the boundaries of parenting. We deal with that a lot.
Yes.
It's crazy to me, parents that call the police. And I part of it, I think, is as a culture, we've made parents afraid to parent.
Right.
And things went too extreme, so they're afraid to be parents. And so they're like, well, I'm just call the police. Like, we have parents that are like, I can't take their phone. I didn't buy it. And I don't want to go to jail for theft. I'm like, man, that's a minor. They can't vote. You better take that phone and let them know who's the boss. You know? So that's one of my pet peeves. Another one is when we're contacting people and they automatically assume things about us, or we're not willing to listen so that we can communicate effectively.
Okay.
So that we can say, hey, this is what we're doing. This is why. And they're like, you can't do this. And I'm like, I can't even have a conversation with you. When you're done talking, you're asking me questions. Let me answer them.
Right.
Like, just give me a chance to answer those questions. Or my growing pet peeve is people being misinformed about what their rights and their privileges are.
Well, yeah, like, you run into that a lot. You can't do this.
You can't do this. And I'm like, actually, yeah, I can. And I'm going to.
Yeah, and I'm going to.
The right that you're referring to incorrectly is this, and this is how you should pursue that. Because I don't have a problem telling people, if you want to complain, this is the form, whatever else. I know what I'm doing is correct, and I don't have a problem being corrected if what I'm doing is wrong.
Right.
It's all good.
Oh, like, that's okay. Yeah, for sure.
Like, it makes me better for it. I didn't come here to do this job to violate people's rights. And I didn't sign up for this job to be immoral or unethical. So if there's a way to make myself better or make my partners better, I'm here for it. I don't have a problem with that.
Yes.
Let's talk about it, but let's do it from an informed place. Right. Like, they have these oversight committees, and I don't think there's anything wrong with community oversight as long as they're educated and informed as to why we do what we do.
Right.
Go through our academy, understand what we're taught, understand why we're taught that, understand the science behind it and the facts behind that. Go through some simulations, see from our perspective what it is and when we encounter it. And then after you do that, after you talk with us, after you have these informed things, then go back and evaluate, are these policies, was this decision? But don't do it from a place of emotion and education, like shoot to wound, or, there's a lot
things
of...
like see on TV,
Yeah, there's a lot. And, the other pet peeve is the CSI issue. Like, when they be like, on TV, they could get the fingerprint off of this and they just scan it. First of all, we ain't got no money.
Nope.
Secondly, those don't exist in real life. It's a writer's creation, and it'd be great. It would make our life so much simpler, but it doesn't exist.
No, it doesn't exist.
Stop. Cut it out. Stop expecting us to do it. Cut it out.
I got a funny story regarding CSI, because I know how people watch it and they think things could be solved, and with all this money and technology and solved in 30 minutes. When I was on patrol years ago, I saw this dude near this car that was parked on the side of the road, and it's like 3:00 in the morning, right? So somebody doing that. So I flip a U-turn and he bolts, right? He runs through this field, right? So I stop and look at the car, and the passenger side window's broken, and there's a rock on the inside, right? So we get the helicopter out, all the units, rolling, and then we cordon off the area, and then we find him hiding somewhere, right? And then so I roll over to where he's at, and then I sit there for a minute while we figure out what's going on. And then, when we search him, he's got some knit gloves in his pocket, right? So I told him when I got him up, said, hey, when I got him back to the station, the reason why it took so long for us to finish this up here is because I got CSI out to the scene of that car. And they did an analysis on that rock that you threw through that window. And guess what they found? Fibers from your glove on that rock. So, you know, because he was denying the whole thing. And then after that, after he heard that, he's like, oh, man, they got me. Yeah, I did it. I'm like, you know, CSI, right?
Yeah. It'll be your downfall.
It'll be your downfall too, but you know that's a funny situation because you know I use that to my advantage.
No more now.
Right, but you know, cool. Well, I appreciate you coming out today. You know, some of the things you say you like to do, you like to travel and all that. I understand you're a singer as well, right? A little bit. You sing in the church. You've done some national anthems and things of that nature. I'm not gonna put you on the spot.
I appreciate that. It's early.
Not going to ask you to sing here today, but, you know, maybe when we're done here, I can ask you to do a little drop for me or something in that perfect singing voice that you got.
We'll make a hook for Black and Blue.
That's what I'm talking about. But on that note, I got a game I like to play with everybody. Well, you're the first one. A little game I like to play, and we call it
Black or Blue, 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 Black or Blue. Come on.
All right, so I call this game Black or Blue, and hopefully you can see that on your screen.
Okay.
What that is, right?
Lord.
So what's going to happen is I'm just going to ask you 5 questions in this category. This category is called They're Playing Our Song, and you can guess what that is. In this category is songs. Songs with either the word black in it, in the title, or the word blue in the title. Easy enough, right?
Card taken. You're going to get my card taken. All right, here we go.
All right, so this should be easy enough for you, right? Let's go with the first one here. As I turn that off, first song title. Don't it make my brown eyes blank? Don't it make my brown eyes blank?
You going to play the song?
Nah, you just got to tell me, is the blank blue or black?
Oh, blue.
Blue. That is... Don't It Make My Brown Eyes Blue by Crystal Gale. Next one is Blank Cat. Blank Cat. That should be pretty easy. Black Cat. Yes. You know that one, right? Janet Jackson. Not Afraid to Die. All right. Next question. All right. I guess that's why they call it the Black or Blue. Which one is it?
Blue.
Blue. I guess that's why they call it the Blue. You know that one, Elton John, right? All right. And the last one, Back in Blank. Back in Black. You know that one, AC/DC? All right, so you've gotten, it looks like 4 out of 5 correct, so that makes you...
All I do is win, no matter what. Got money on my mind.
I got them all right.
Everybody hands go up. All right, so I appreciate it. So that was our first edition of the Black and Blue game and the Black and Blue podcast. I really appreciate you coming out and joining me today on this podcast. It was real fun, and let's do it again soon.
Absolutely.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you for having me.
All right. We'll talk again. All right.
Okay.
Thank you. All right. I'd like to thank Detective Green for coming out and blessing us with her presence, giving us some good conversation, some good insight here on the first episode of the Black and Blue podcast. I really enjoyed the conversation. I hope you guys out there did too. Again, Detective Green, thank you. I appreciate it. So before I get out of here, I want to introduce a segment I want to do moving forward, something I call Props for Cops.
Give me my props, yo. More than a cop, yo. Till I master hip hop, I won't stop, yo. Give me my props, yo. More than a cop, yo. Till I master hip hop, I won't stop, yo. AG.
Now, what Props for Cops is basically, hey, I want to get some props. I want to recognize some officers and some departments out there for doing good work in the communities which they serve. On this very first segment of Props for Cops, I want to recognize the brand new police commissioner for the Philadelphia Police Department, Commissioner Danielle Outlaw. Now, Commissioner Outlaw is going to be sworn in right around the same time that this podcast is released on February 10th. What makes her swearing in significant is she's going to be the very first, that's right, the very first African-American female to head up that 2,600 member department. She came from the Portland Police Department, where she was the chief over there since 2017. And prior to that, she was one of the deputy chiefs over at the Oakland Police Department, where she served for almost 20 years. So I want to wish her good luck, Godspeed, and congratulations again to Commissioner Danielle Outlaw of the Philadelphia Police Department. So that's my time here on this very first episode of the Black and Blue Podcast. I hope you enjoyed everything you heard and you saw here today. If you did, please come back again. Subscribe to the podcast, subscribe to the YouTube, and I'll be sure to get more content like this out to you in the future. Till next time, make sure you stay black and blue. I'll holla at you. Peace.
This has been a Maitre D Entertainment presentation.